We have the Daily Nation, we have the Star, we have the Standard newspaper, the Business Daily, and also we'll be going across the region to get to see what their papers have to say. What do we start with? The Standard newspaper, back to their culture of having one very story that carries the day. Of course, they speak about the pumps and the fuel, but they bring in a different tweak to it. They say doublespeak master. Well, this is actually not a question. I think it's a declaration by the Standard newspaper. And right there is on the front page is the face of Mr. President, of course, Dr. William Ruto. And this is what they say. He roared to power on public anger over fuel prices. Now, President William Ruto is grappling with the same crisis he once brushed off as excuses as palm prices climb to about 200 shillings and his government leans on global war pressures. He previously dismissed the irony is stuck. Now, the latest fuel shock is squeezing households slowing business activity and tightening inflation's grip. A president who promised to crush cartels and lower costs now presides over rising taxes and shrinking incomes as well as growing public anger. This is a story that has been captured on page 4, 5, 6 and 7 of the Standard newspaper. Many say that perhaps we are politicizing this whole matter unnecessarily. Others say that it is a fact that indeed it is a global concern and we get to witness the complaints across the different parts of Africa and beyond. Can we confidently declare this? Master of Doublespeak later on will be expounding it. Just get to understand what this means for the Kenya Kwanza government in terms of governing and even at this very point where we're headed to the general election. What do you have?
All right, and that's the Standard. Taifa leo wanasema ni kubaya.
Wanazungumzia pia mafuta
kabisa. Pressure the pump. Bei ya mafuta yaongezeka kihistoria. Serikali ikisema ni kutokana na vita vinavyoendelea Iran. Bei ya mafuta ya dizeli yanayotumiwa sana kwa usafiri wa umma ndio iliyopaa zaidi kwa shilingi 40, nayo petroli ikaongezeka kwa shilingi 28. Sasa petroli inauzwa shilingi 226 na senti what is 97? 97. Right. Dizeli kwa shilingi 206 na senti 84 na mafuta taa kwa shilingi 152. Wenye magari wasema wataongeza nauli kwa 25%. Viongozi wa upinzani wakimshinikiza Ruto arejeshe bei chini mara moja, vinginevyo waitishe maandamano. Hii habari imezungumziwa katika ukurasa wa pili. I think they did this report before, of course, the revision of the current fuel prices. This were yesterday's fuel prices. Anasema petroli as of April was 206, yesterday that is, 206 shillings and 97 cents, nyongeza ya shilingi 28. March it was at 178 shillings. Diesel yesterday was at 206 shillings and 84 cents, nyongeza ya shilingi 40. As of March, it was at 166 shillings, and bei ya kerosene mafuta taa remains unchanged up until today. So asilimia iliyotangazwa na wamiliki wa magari kama ongezeko la nauli ni 25%. So it's important to know that EPRA has revised these fuel prices and today they are not at 206 shillings as Taifa is reporting this morning. Petrol is retailing at 197 shillings 60 cents, diesel at 196 shillings 63 cents, and kerosene at 152 shillings. It remains unchanged according to the Energy, Petroleum and Regulatory Authority. Right, that's the main story in the front page of Taifa leo this morning. Vidokeza zaidi sababu gani hufai kutumia msamiati mzito. Watu wetu wa Luya kule, watu wa msamiati mzito.
Watu wa ambapo.
Nyinyi, watu wa Emuhaya. Mnaambiwa watu wa ambapo angalau endapo. Sababu hufai kutumia msamiati mzito. Hii habari iko katika ukurasa wa 13. Inasema katika jarida la lugha na fasihi kuna uchambuzi wa vitabu vya fasihi na nasaha kuhusu Kiswahili. Sasa msitukuie wakali na lugha. Interesting.
No, you know, communication is critical. Language, you must make it as simple as possible. Watu ambao unawazungumzia wakuelewe. Kuleta jargon haimaanishi ati wewe sasa ndio
mnoma. Wastaafu wagongwa pensheni yao. Mkaguzi agundua visa vingi vya watu hewa wanaonyonya pensheni ya wastaafu. Now there's ghost people eating in from pension. And UDA, mshirika wa mabavu, chama tawala charipotiwa kutumia nafasi yake ya mamlaka kutatiza vyama shirika kama vile PA, Ford Kenya, ANC na sasa vile chama cha ODM. Na kule juu anazungumzia pia masala ya spoti pale, PSG na Atletico waingia nusu finali UEFA na hakuna tiketi ya moja kwa moja. Wanga asema, uli mwenyekiti wa chama cha ODM asema chama hicho hakitatoa vyeti bila uchaguzi wa mchujo, na hiyo ni Taifa Leo.
Na pia tusahau kuwashirikia kina dada wetu ambao walipiga mpira jana.
Yes.
Tulikuwa tuna make a lot of noise kuhusu FIFA. They lost to Australia, lakini they put up a good fight.
They did.
They did. All right. The Daily Nation this morning speaks of course, pumping up pain. Definitely that conversation around the fuel prices is critical. Na nafikiri watu kama Ebra waambiwe mapema ya kwamba ni vizuri hizi adjustments wakuwa wanafanya mapema ndio tukizungumza
mchana.
Tunaweka kwa magazeti, you know, the right figures according to the adjustments. Kwa sababu unajua we begin working on such, you know, stories very early. Kwa hiyo sasa tukizungumzia kwamba adjustments zimekuwa up by 40 and 28, and then of course all of a sudden there's that adjustment of prices as you have read out, kidogo tunakaa kama ambavyo misinforming, sio so pumping up pain, pages 4, 5, 6 is you know, this is a story that has been captured on the front page of the Daily Nation, and it speaks of the key impacts that it will have on the different sectors. Costly production definitely is one thing that we'll experience. Public transport will definitely have their prices shoot up. Of course, we're talking about the freight, where Kenya Transporters Association directs members to raise cargo transport and, you know, the prices by 14%. As well as the food prices, we'll definitely get to see that in the shelves or on the shelves, the prices will adjust upwards. And on the question of labor, kikweli hautomwambia mtu akuje ofisini and, you know, they are taking transport is expensive, and of course they're providing this labor, and you give them, you know, the same amount that you give them yesterday or the day before yesterday. The prices must be adjusted upwards. And so across the different parts or different sectors, we'll definitely get to see this story, you know, having an impact. But that aside, also on the front page, you know, the Auditor General is always exposing fraud in different quarters. This time around, they talk about 119 billion fraud pension payouts, where the Auditor General Nancy Gathungu questions the credibility of data used by the National Treasury, that is to pay retirees, saying missing identification records point to ghost beneficiary. This is quite unfortunate, and especially when you get to see some of our grandparents, our parents not getting their pensions as expected, the struggle that they get to have even to get ile pesa ya wazee, and then you get this report. It is quite wanting. And civil servants join revolt against SHA. This is a story that has been captured on page 8. One side says that SHA is working, another side says SHA is not working, but also the civil servants have joined in so that they get to streamline this health, you know, system for purposes of getting it right. You saw the cartoon that we had yesterday, one speaking of just how expensive health is in the country. You are lying in a hospital bed. Your biggest worry is not even getting, you know, well. Your biggest worry is that hospital bill. And bullying partners inside UDA, war on allies, a story captured on page 10 of the Daily Nation that speaks to the politics of the broad-based government. ANC was dissolved, but Ford Kenya, that is, as well as PAA, that is PA, if you know it, from the coastal region, and others have rejected the demand to fold into UDA. Just what is the ultimate goal, even as we all know that UDA, and I remember speaking to Johnston Mudan, then the chair of UDA, saying that their biggest mission is to ensure that they have this big party that will consolidate almost all these other ones into it, so that they have a strong party that will stay for decades and not just a vehicle to pass them through the next election. So, of course, a bit of altercation here and there, but we certainly hope that they keep or they put their house in order if at all they are going to go it and win the 2027 general election. That's all we have on the Daily Nation.
All right. People Daily, inside the judiciary crisis, talks about delays, missing records, and a 6.3 billion shilling stalled project. The story has been captured on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. Says that court revealed significant backlog, further raised concerns, the prolonged process of resolving the pending cases. It says that the judiciary has about 496 cases at the Kwale Law Courts alone that have been ongoing for more than 3 years. And on the data might that it has ongoing capital projects worth 6.3 billion shillings stalled due to underfunding. So this has been attributed to underfunding that, of course, negatively impacts the access of justice and completion of projects at the judiciary. And that's the main story on the front page of the People Daily this morning. Other quick headlines as they report. They say, could Kenya face violence in 2027? IEBC raises alarm. They make this analysis on page 2. Could Kenya really face violence in 2027? Well, Letu Jicho, it's a matter of wait and see. On the top strip, Kenyans hit by fuel surge and looming power price. So that's another story captured on page 6 and 7 of this newspaper. As you've seen so far, all the newspapers that we've talked about are talking about the fuel prices, pressure at the pump, pumping up pain as they talk about it. And that's the People Daily.
And the Star, quickly still on that, fuel prices hike drives up family budgets across, the economy or the Kenyan economy. Story captured on page 4 and 5. They also paint a picture of what the situation was like yesterday in the city, especially when Kenyans were trying to throng into different spaces to get home. Number one, there was massive traffic, but also there was struggles because of the high prices of travel or matatu fare, as you can see on the front page of the Star newspaper. Yes, and this is also a story that has extensively been captured on page 2 of the Star newspaper. Also, Alama's share failures acute and staffing cripple hospitals. The story captured on page 7. The conversation on SHA and how we're going to get it right continues, even as Kenyans as well are excited about registering themselves as SHA members. Court upholds a death sentence for 2 in brutal 2011 robbery. That is a story captured on page 9. Of course, they say the wheels of justice will grind slowly, but eventually they will catch up to you or with you in the event that this is necessary. Big read, turning waste into wealth. That is a crass lesson for Kenyans or for Kenya. The question of benchmarking. I think we always see us traveling to different other countries, our legislators, in a bid to get to see how they do different things or things different so that they can come and employ the same at home. So this great story captured on page 15 and 16. They talk about how they can transform the sector, turning waste into wealth. Accra lessons. Dandora could be transformed by recycling waste, turning dam site to modern landfill. And we all know just how messy the Dandora dam site can be. So if this is going to offer a reprieve, then why not? The Business Daily.
All right, Kenya fuel subsidies at risk as Saudi raises May prices. Saudi is one of the government suppliers under the government-to-government deal. And it says that a fund that cushions Kenyans against costly fuel is set to come under pressure in the coming months. Suppliers warned the cost of diesel and petrol will go even higher for consignments covering the May to August period. The energy regulator on Wednesday raised retail fuel prices by much as 24.2% to 206 shillings and 84 cents per litre of diesel amid a spike in crude prices and squeezed petroleum supplies caused by the Middle East conflict. The supplier, that is the Saudi Aramco, they reckon that the US-Israel war on Iran has forced it to change the terms of the deal and will deliver its consignment for May at a higher price. That story is on page 2, and that's the main story on the front page of the Business Daily this morning. They also talk about banks sitting on excess 2.6 trillion shillings as Kenyans shun investments. Kenyans are not investing anymore. Lakini the economy is too high. What is there to invest? But I'm not discouraging you. Invest. Tough times ahead.
You have to be careful. Otherwise, the future will also be there waiting for you.
And that's the Business Daily this morning. Right. Tuvuke border.
We have the Citizen. Okay, right.
Let's start off from Uganda. We have the new vision, and it talks about teachers' payment system to change. Government moves to crack down on absenteeism in schools. They're going big on matters education kama kawaida hapo. President Museveni stresses impotence of national defense. It's another story captured on the front page, extensively on page 2. On the top strip, witness recounts ritual-like killings. Blogger injured at court promises. This is about the Gaba murder. The trial is ongoing in Uganda, where 4 kids were killed at a daycare in Uganda. And that's the new vision. Tangalia Daily Monitor. How sovereignty bill will affect you, Ugandans. They say any Ugandan found guilty of engaging in activities such as soliciting, receiving, or obtaining assistance from a foreigner to sponsor or organize a meeting or function that promote foreign policy not adopted by cabinet will face 20 years in prison and a fine of 2 billion shillings. And of course, the story of Ngaba killing case resumes today as judge asks Okello's medical records. And that's the Daily Monitor.
All right, twende moja kwa moja mpaka Tanzania. We have the Citizen. Yes, and the Citizen speaks to fuel, by the way, Odida, and speaks of what is happening across East Africa. They have highlighted the prices, and they are asking who's paying what for fuel in East Africa. Apparently, it appears that, Kenya, let's just talk about petrol and diesel, now cost more in Kenya than anywhere else in the region, following sharp prices increase announced on Wednesday evening. They looked into the prices that were there. Of course, the adjustments go lower, but that does not mean that it will be any different. We continue to be right at the forefront compared to our neighbors. And I think that conversation we had this yesterday morning as well, as we highlighted and questioned just why it has to be the case. What is this that brings in the discrepancies such that the country can be paying more than Tanzania, more than Uganda, more than Rwanda? Well, of course, that is a story that is captured on the front page extensively on page 2. Another story says government strikes off 40 mineral exploitation permits over non-compliance. That is a story captured on page 2. Remember also yesterday they were talking of how this area of mineral is very critical in the growth of Tanzania's economy. And now they say that, of course, this strike is necessary so that they can have the sector clean for purposes of rooting out, corruption and also ensuring that there is investor confidence. Why Court has lifted ban on Chadema. This is quite an interesting story. It will be interesting to see how it pans out. The Court of Appeal has overturned a High Court order that barred the opposition Chadema from engaging in political activities. A story captured on page 3, and I know questions will arise as to why now. Perhaps right after the election, they would have been, found it even better to have the latitude to operate and to run their politics during the election hearing period. But unfortunately, they were banned. So why is it that they're being released at this very point? And speaking of that, we cross over to Mwananchi. That is one of the stories that has been captured on the front page. Actually, the biggest story. Wanasema hao wamerudi, kwa hiyo wataangaisha labda katika hiyo hali ya kupolitik in the country. Mahakama ya rufani ya Tanzania yafuta amri ya muda zilizokuwa zinazuia shughuli za kisiasa za Chadema. Kwa hiyo utawaona pale wakizungumzia mambo ambavyo yanaendelea katika nchi ya Tanzania. And that means of course maswali yataibuka, kwa nini wakati huu, kwa nini muda huu, wakati ambapo nchi tayari imesha kwenda ikafanya uchaguzi, mambo yamepoa, ndio mahakama inaamua vipi? Well, that is one story captured. Alafu serikali yafafanua hoja za wabunge, mafuta kimya. Conversation on fuel pia inaendelea pale Tanzania. Zaidi ya yote kuna siri leseni 40 za madini kufuata Mavunde aonya. Nafikiri these are the key stories that have also been captured on the Citizen. The caricatures.
Let's take a look at the one on the Standard. Talks about the